They thought losing you was their victory. They celebrated when you walked away, convinced they'd finally escaped the one person who saw through their masks. But here's what they didn't realize. Your absence wasn't just silence. It was the removal of the only protection their chaotic life ever had. And now, as their world crumbles piece by piece, they're starting to understand a truth that haunts them every waking moment. Losing you wasn't freedom. It was the beginning of their curse. You weren't just another person in their life. You were the anchor keeping their storm from destroying everything. You were the calm that balanced their chaos, the light that kept their darkness from swallowing them whole. They took you for granted, treated your loyalty like it was disposable, mocked your kindness as if it made you weak. But the moment you disappeared, everything they thought was solid started cracking. Their relationships feel hollow, their achievements taste empty, their nights stretch endlessly, filled with memories of what they destroyed. And here's the part that's eating them alive. They can't undo it. They can't rewind time and appreciate what they had. They can't take back the words, the disrespect, the moments they chose pride over presence. Your absence is a shadow that follows them everywhere, a constant reminder that some losses don't heal. Some mistakes don't get second chances. They thought they were punishing you by letting you go. Instead, they sentenced themselves to a life without the one person who made their existence feel meaningful. If you're watching this right now, it's no accident. You're one of the chosen ones, someone whose energy is so rare, so powerful, that your absence creates earthquakes in the lives of those who took you for granted. Before we go deeper into this truth, do me one favor. Press that like button and hit subscribe. This message needs to reach others walking this same path, others who need to understand their worth. When you engage, you signal to others that they're not alone in this journey. Now let's dive into exactly how your absence became the curse they'll never escape. When you were in their life, you held things together in ways they never noticed. You weren't loud about it. You didn't demand credit. You simply showed up, day after day, stabilizing their chaos without fanfare. Your presence was the invisible thread holding their fragile world intact. You smoothed over their mistakes, absorbed their emotional storms, gave them peace they never earned, and they mistook all of it for weakness. They thought because you gave freely, your value was cheap. They assumed because you stayed patient, you had nowhere else to go. They believed their life ran smoothly because they were blessed, never realizing the blessing was you. But blessings taken for granted turn into lessons, and lessons for people like them come with consequences they can't escape. The moment you walked away, that invisible thread snapped, and everything you were holding together came crashing down. Think of it like this. Imagine a building that looks strong from the outside, but it's actually being held up by one central beam. Remove that beam, and the entire structure collapses. That beam was you. Your emotional support was what kept their relationships from imploding. Your steady energy was what gave them the confidence to face each day. Your presence was what made their life feel purposeful, even when they didn't have the awareness to see it. Now that you're gone, they're watching everything fall apart in slow motion. Their new relationships feel shallow because nobody understands them the way you did. Their achievements feel meaningless because you were the only one who celebrated their wins with genuine joy. Their daily routine feels like sleepwalking through a life that lost its color. They wake up with regret and go to bed with guilt, replaying moments they can't change, mourning a connection they destroyed with their own hands. Your silence is louder than any argument ever was. When you stopped explaining yourself, stopped defending your worth, stopped trying to make them understand, that's when the real damage began, because your detachment forced them to face something terrifying: life without you. And that reality is a nightmare they can't wake up from. They check their phone, hoping to see your name. They scroll through old conversations, rereading words that once felt ordinary but now feel precious. They hear songs that remind them of you and feel their chest tighten with a pain they can't name. Your absence isn't passive, it's an active force, reshaping their entire emotional landscape. Every moment of peace you're experiencing is another wave of regret crashing over them. Here's what makes it unbearable for them. They know they caused this. They can't blame circumstances or bad timing or external forces. They looked at something rare and chose to treat it like it was common. They had someone who would have stood by them through anything, and they traded that loyalty for temporary validation from people who'll never care about them the way you did. That realization doesn't fade with time. It grows sharper, more painful, more inescapable. Your absence is teaching them lessons you never had to speak out loud. Every failed connection reminds them of what you offered. Every shallow conversation highlights the depth you brought. Every person who disappoints them proves that what you gave wasn't normal, it was exceptional. And exceptional, once lost, leaves a void that nothing else can fill. They're learning that replacing you isn't about finding someone new. It's about finding someone who makes them feel the way you did. And that person doesn't exist. They thought moving on would be easy. They thought finding someone new would erase the memory of what they lost. But here's the cruel irony. Every person they meet now gets measured against you, and every single one falls short. Not because these new people are flawed, but because you set a standard they never appreciated until it was gone. Your patience becomes impossible to find in others. Your understanding feels like a myth they once experienced but can't recreate. Your loyalty looks like fiction when everyone else shows them conditional love. They're trapped in a comparison game where you're the benchmark and everyone else is lacking. That's not arrogance on your part, that's simply the consequence of being genuine in a world full of performance. They try to convince themselves that someone new will be better, different, more compatible, but deep down, they know the truth. What they had with you wasn't about compatibility, it was about rarity. You weren't perfect, but you were real. You weren't flawless, but you were consistent. You weren't everything, but you were enough. And enough from someone authentic beats everything from someone fake. Now they're stuck in relationships that feel like rehearsals for something that already ended. They go through the motions with new people, but their mind drifts back to you. They try to recreate moments you shared, but the magic isn't there. They're searching for your essence in strangers' faces and coming up empty every time. Your absence turned you into a ghost that haunts every connection they try to build. And exorcism isn't possible when the haunting is rooted in truth. Regret is a unique kind of pain. It's not sharp like betrayal or burning like anger. It's a slow, constant ache that colors every memory, every thought, every quiet moment. And for them, regret isn't just an emotion, it's become their default state. They replay conversations differently in their head, imagining what they should have said instead of what they did. They rewrite arguments, choosing patience over pride. They recreate moments where they chose ego over connection, wishing they could go back and choose differently. But time doesn't rewind. Choices don't get undone. Words said in anger don't get erased just because they're regretted. They're learning that some mistakes are permanent, some doors close forever, and some people like you, only come around once in a lifetime. That knowledge sits in their chest like a stone they carry everywhere, getting heavier with each passing day. What makes their regret especially painful is that they remember the warning signs. They remember the moments you pulled away, the times your eyes showed hurt, the instances where your silence screamed what your words wouldn't say. They saw it happening and chose not to care. They watched you detach and convinced themselves it was temporary, that you'd always come back, that your loyalty was guaranteed. Their arrogance blinded them to the cliff they were running toward, and now they're falling with no ground in sight. Your absence forced them to confront who they really are without you, and what they see terrifies them. Without your patience, they're reactive and volatile. Without your understanding, they're isolated and misunderstood. Without your presence, they're just another person struggling through life without purpose or peace. You weren't a chapter in their story, you were the ink that made the entire narrative readable. And now the pages are blank, meaningless, impossible to make sense of. They called you too sensitive when you expressed your feelings. They labeled you dramatic when you set boundaries. They mocked your depth as overthinking and your loyalty as desperation. But now, in your absence, they're finally seeing the truth. What they called weakness was actually the strongest thing about you, and that realization is destroying them. Your sensitivity wasn't fragility, it was emotional intelligence. You felt deeply because you cared deeply, and that care created the safe space they took for granted. Your boundaries weren't walls, they were standards, and those standards kept the relationship from becoming toxic chaos. Your depth wasn't overthinking, it was the ability to see beneath surfaces, to understand motivations, to connect on levels most people never reach. Everything they criticized was actually the foundation of what made you irreplaceable. Now they're surrounded by people who don't challenge them, don't push them to grow, don't see through their performance. And they're realizing that comfort isn't always good. Sometimes comfort is stagnation. Sometimes being challenged is what forces evolution. You pushed them toward better versions of themselves, and they resented you for it. Now they're stuck with people who enable their worst traits, and the descent is lonely and irreversible. They're learning that strength isn't always loud. Sometimes strength is quiet consistency. Sometimes strength is choosing peace over being right. Sometimes strength is walking away when staying would destroy you. You showed them all of those strengths, and they mistook every single one for something lesser. Now they see strength in your absence, the strength to cut off what no longer serves you, the strength to value yourself enough to leave, the strength to rebuild without them. And that strength they once mocked is now the thing they wish they possessed. While they're trapped in regret, you're experiencing something they can't comprehend. Freedom. Real freedom. Not the shallow version they chased when they pushed you away, but the deep, soul-level liberation that comes from releasing what drained you. Your life isn't perfect, but it's yours. Your path isn't easy, but it's clear. Your peace isn't constant, but it's real. And that authenticity is something they'll spend years trying to find. You're no longer carrying their emotional baggage. You're no longer shrinking yourself to fit their expectations. You're no longer performing for people who never appreciated the show. You walked away from the stage they built for you and started building your own theater, your own production, your own story. And in that story, you're not the supporting character, you're the lead. They see glimpses of your growth through mutual connections, through social media, through the energy shift they feel, even from a distance. And it kills them, because while they're stuck replaying old memories, you're creating new ones. While they're drowning in what-ifs, you're living in what is. While they're frozen in regret, you're moving forward with purpose. The contrast is devastating for them and liberating for you. Your absence became their curse, but it became your catalyst. Their loss became your lesson. Their mistake became your breakthrough. Your proof that sometimes the best thing that can happen is for the wrong people to remove themselves from your life, because their exit created space for the right energy, the right connections, the right version of yourself to emerge. And that emergence is unstoppable. So here's the truth they're choking on right now. Losing you wasn't just losing a person. It was losing the best thing that ever happened to them. And that loss will follow them forever, whispering in quiet moments, screaming in lonely nights, reminding them that some mistakes can't be fixed. Meanwhile, you're rising, healing, glowing, becoming everything they said you couldn't be. Your absence cursed them with permanent regret, but it blessed you with permanent freedom. And that, chosen one, is the justice the universe always delivers. If this resonated with your soul, drop the number 777 inches the comments and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Your journey is just beginning, and the best is yet to come.